Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to FACETS' 8th annual benefit breakfast. My name is Julie Carey, and I am so honored to once again serve as your host this morning. We are going to shake off all that disappointment over the Caps' loss last night. Let's shake it off. I've changed to blue today. The red's behind me now. But we are going to be inspired instead by what we're going to hear today. We're going to learn about how FACETS is changing the future for individuals and families in our community experiencing homelessness, poverty, and hunger. You're going to hear, and this is one of my favorite parts every year, you're going to hear directly from the courageous FACETS clients as they share their stories of triumph over adversity. Triumph only possible because of the support of caring FACETS case managers and folks like you who believe that in Fairfax County, everyone deserves a place to call home. This morning, too, we will be marking 15 years of FACETS hypothermia prevention and response program. Yeah, I know, that's worth applause. As you know, this program had a tragic start many years ago when 2 men died on a cold winter night. FACETS founder Linda Wimpy knew that if she turned to her faith partners, together they could offer so much more than just a warm place to spend the night. With the support of Fairfax County, the program began, and this year, 302 people came in out of the cold, and 38 of those folks now happily and safely housed. That's great, too.
Great to see you. Well, good morning. If there's anything politicians love, it's to stand up in total silence and be recognized for the years of our service and our many contributions to the community. Just starts us off with the right spirit. Yeah, go ahead, you can applaud. You know, FACETS is such an important organization, even historically in the community of Fairfax County and beyond. And I like to credit part of it from the founder, Linda Wimpy. I was Providence supervisor at the time, and I got a call from this person named Linda Wimpy saying, why don't you come out with us some night on the hot meal delivery program. I thought, well, yeah, I guess I should do that. And so we went out, and it was such an eye-opening experience. All kinds of people being served by that program. People living in, under tarps in the woods. Families kind of trying to hold it together in inexpensive motels in both the Route 1 corridor and the 29 corridor. Businessmen in suits coming out from culverts to collect a hot meal that night, and they went to work the next morning. People who were fastidious or tried to be fastidious about their personal arraignment and hygiene, who had a condition. They were bipolar and couldn't keep down a job even though they were educated and trained. And the stereotypes just flew away. And the humanity of the people in front of us being served really came into full focus. And what you concluded was, there but for the grace of God go I. And when you heard the stories, that was reinforced. And what really united all of the people in homeless condition, and what really characterized FACETS and Linda Wimpy, was the word dignity. Everyone's entitled to dignity. Everyone wants dignity and self-esteem. And boy, did Linda Wimpy give it in, huge measures. She never talked down to anybody. She treated everyone as an equal. And I never forgot that. And when I became chairman, we started a lot of programs to deal with this issue. We started a hypothermia program, And over 17 weeks, we had 17 houses of worship open their doors to make sure people could come in from the cold and be served a hot meal. And lots of volunteers got involved in the effort. And what they found was they went into the effort thinking they were doing a good deed. They came out of the effort being transformed by the experience themselves. And we did T-shirts that year that said 17 weeks times 17 churches equals 0. Because for the first time in years, we had 0 hypothermia deaths because of that program. We started the Penny for Affordable Housing, and we preserved over 2,500 housing units, and we bumped up support for our nonprofit partners. We hired a homeless coordinator. And in the 10 years since that effort began, only Fairfax County in metropolitan Washington has reduced the number of people in the homeless condition. And we haven't just reduced it, we reduced it by 47% in Fairfax County. We could not do that without our nonprofit partners, FACETS being chief among them, and being the inspiration for so much else that followed. And there are great heroes in the story, the Lamb Center being one of them, but so many other nonprofits doing wonderful work too. But FACETS really started it off in getting this community focused on this subject and committed to doing something about it. So FACETS, thank you for 30 wonderful years. Keep it going. And I hope 30 years from now we're out of business and don't need this breakfast. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. That's so great to hear about the origins of FACETS. Now it is my pleasure to introduce FACETS Executive Director Joe Fay. Joe joined FACETS 2 years ago after a career in IT and consulting. His dedication to FACETS' mission to prevent and end homelessness runs very deep, as he's been serving as Fairfax County resident since back in 2002 when he joined the board of Northern Virginia Family Services. His business acumen meets his passion in this role as Executive Director for FACETS. So please join me in welcoming Joe.
Not going to work. Good morning. Thank you, Julie. And thank you all for coming out today. We really appreciate your commitment and your work with us. Our theme today is hope and bloom. Hope and bloom. Hope. Hope's one of my favorite words. At FACETS, hope is what every staff member brings to work every day. It's what our case managers strive to build with their clients. Hope for housing and a brighter future. Hope is what we give to the children in our community centers as we help them become stronger, better educated, and resilient adults. For the guests at our hypothermia prevention centers, as we said, we've been doing this for 15 years. It's to keep hope alive as we work to help them move from homelessness to housing. Hope is a case manager reaching out their hand to a woman in the woods sleeping in a tent at 4 o'clock in the morning and having her reach back and start the journey from the woods to home. On April 11th, along with other nonprofits and advocates, we presented our hope for the future of affordable housing here in Fairfax County. Congressman Connolly spoke about the Penny Fund, and our investment in affordable housing couldn't be more important. For so many people we work with, the cost of housing is a core challenge. When the average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment here in Fairfax County is $2,300 a month, and you make $12 an hour working full-time, that apartment is just out of reach. And we really believe that if you live here, if you work here, if you work full-time here, you should be able to live here, and your children should be able to go to school here. This couldn't be more important. With the expected growth in our county, Over the next 15 years, we'll only need another 15,000 units of affordable housing. And that's a big number, but it's an even bigger number because today we're 31,000 units short of our need in affordable housing. So we really have to begin to invest. 31,000 units short today, and we all see the growth in our region, and the growth is wonderful. But it's important that we invest in this as we invest in other aspects of our community. We've made recommendations for a significant investment, $50 million in affordable housing, including new housing production, housing preservation, rental subsidy programs, and a path to affordable home ownership. We know it's a big investment, but it's an investment in more than dollars. It's an investment in that hope. It's an investment in young people trying to get that first apartment. It's an investment in the family trying to meet and care for their children as they grow here. And for those experiencing homelessness, it's an investment in hope for the future. It's an investment in hope. I believe in hope because I see how hope can move mountains, change the lives of the people we work with, and make Fairfax County an even better place to live. So what about the bloom, right? In Hope and Bloom. The bloom is the smile on the face of a young man who graduates from our after-school homework help program and goes off to college. The bloom is the smile on the face of his mom, who speaks English in her first job interview, English that she learned at our community center, and gets the job. It's the turn of a key by a man who spent the last 10 years in the woods and is now safely and respectfully housed with a FACETS case manager who will continue to check in on him. And it's the garden of blooms as 38 people leave homelessness for housing. They leave our hypothermia program, thanks to the work of our case managers with them, and move into their own homes. And those case managers will continue to check in on them and make sure that their transition from homelessness to home works well. The seeds we plant today at this breakfast will bloom in many ways for years to come. And thanks for that speeded up, Tessa. But really, thank you all. Thank you all for your help. Thank you all for your commitment and your work with us. We really couldn't do it without you, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I mentioned it earlier, but it was 15 years ago that 2 men died of hypothermia on the streets of Fairfax County. Now, many communities have hypothermia prevention centers, but FACETS was the first in Fairfax County to include case management as an integral part of the program, working with the guests each night to help them move from homeless to housed. So now we would like to recognize the many faith partners and volunteers that make FACETS hypothermia program a shining light on a cold, dark winter night. In the beginning, there were just a few churches, as Congressman Connolly mentioned, and the hypothermia program only operated on nights when it was extremely cold. If your church hosted or if you volunteered in the hypothermia prevention program 15 years ago, I'd like you to stand and remain standing. Way back. Now, the program grew with more churches opening their doors and their congregations opening their arms to their neighbors in need. So if your church has hosted or if you volunteered for 14 years, I'd like to see that group stand up. It's getting bigger. Stay with me for a minute here. You might see where this is headed. So the program, of course, continued to grow. I want you to start standing now if your church or you have volunteered for 13 years. 12 years? 11 years? 10 years? 9 years, 8 years, 7 years, 6 years, 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, and 1 year. Let's add those newcomers. Wow. This room is a true picture of commitment right now. Thank you so much to all of you. Without your kindness, compassion, and generosity, this program obviously would not exist. Now, another important part of the program is FACETS staff who spend each night in the centers offering case management, a listening ear, and a caring heart. FACETS full-time staff is supplemented with hypothermia facilitators. They often work a full day and then spend the night at the center, supporting the volunteers and representing FACETS. So we would now like to ask the FACETS Hypothermia Prevention and Response Team to stand, and we'd like to thank them with some applause. We'd also like to recognize FACETS Hypothermia Prevention and Response Manager, Maria Avila, and her second in command, her assistant, Norca Calderon, for their tireless devotion to the hosting churches, volunteers, and guests. And there's a little something, a little token to thank them for their just tireless and unending work. Thank you to both of you. And finally, every FACETS team member works tirelessly for their clients and the organization. So we would like to have the entire staff stand now and be recognized for the changing work that you do. Now, we're going to have a chance to take a look at how this all works in a special video.
The year was 1988, when FACETS founder Linda Wimpy began feeding hot meals to her neighbors who were homeless and hungry along Route 50 in Fairfax County. Today, with the help of you, our faith community partners, corporate sponsors, and caring individuals, FACETS changes the world for over 3,000 men, women, and children each year. From those early days of serving hot meals to the hungry to today, when we have programs and services that touch on every facet of homelessness, poverty, and hunger, we are deeply grateful for your support, and together we will continue to open the door to a bright future for the people we serve.
I sleep in my car. It is not the best situation, but compared to some of the other homeless people who are sleeping in the woods on a bench out in the middle of nowhere, riding the bus during the night because they don't want to sleep out on the street, it's better than that. I thank God for my church, and I have my car. It could be a lot worse, so I'm very grateful.
Our singles team meets people where they are, in the woods, on the street, or in their cars. When the days get darker and the winter winds blow cold, our case managers have the opportunity to form bonds of trust and respect during our hypothermia prevention program.
The hypothermia program is an extraordinary program. It really takes the people who are sleeping outside in the woods, on a bench, in their car. It takes them to a place that is safe, that is warm, that is loving and caring. And the church people go out of their way, as well as the FACET people, to make sure that we're safe and we're kept comfortable, and we have food to eat, and we get a decent night's sleep, and wake up in the morning and get some breakfast and everything, and then hopefully get some lunch if we'd like to, and then be on our way.
This year marks 15 years of working with a constantly growing group of faith community partners who host each winter. These incredible people open not just their doors, but also their arms and their hearts to provide a warm place to sleep, delicious food, and the sense of family and fellowship that raises the self-esteem of our guests.
One of the churches where I was, we were learning to play Uno, and one of the ladies there very kindly went out and bought my own pack of Uno cards and gave to me. It may not seem a lot to somebody, but to me, that was such a thoughtful, wonderful thing for her to do for me. It really touched my heart. Yes, it did.
Our FACETS case managers are on site at each location, forming what Linda Wimpy called a connection of the heart, earning the trust and respect of the guests, preventing hypothermia deaths, and moving them from homeless to home. Your support of our 4 community centers is helping to break the cycle of poverty for the families we serve. Each center, located in a subsidized housing neighborhood, is the heart of the community, a place where adults learn English as a second language, financial stability and job readiness training, and important case management services, all designed to help open the door to a bright future.
I said, okay, and I see the sign. It said, FACETS Open Doors. I said, what, I've been just reading signs back and forth here and there. And I was like really new in the community, and I said, I don't know what's that for. So when I see Rania and I get inside, and she's, talking about FACETS, how she's gonna help the community, the homework, I said, wow, that's really good.
After school, children flock to the centers for homework help, our computer labs, and classes dedicated to raising self-esteem, anti-bullying, and much more.
Well, I've been at Barrows for since I was 7, so that's like a long time. And FACETS has really helped me a lot with like my homework, and then also helping me as a college student, because I am a college student now. And I still kind of get that help and guidance that I got when I was in elementary. So FACETS has been a huge help and a part of my life.
For those who have been homeless for a year or more, or those with a debilitating physical or mental illness, life can be a battle. FACETS is there with permanent supportive housing. Whether in one of our 2 staffed group homes or in a home of their own, these special people are part of our FACETS family for the rest of their lives, with a caring case manager who ensures they will be stably, safely, and happily housed. Fairfax County is a place of plenty, with great schools and beautiful neighborhoods. And yet, along the Route 1 corridor are some of the poorest and yet most resilient people you will meet. Our Next Steps Family Shelter provides emergency shelter to families facing homelessness, as our case managers work tirelessly to help them become housed again. We know that catching people before they fall makes all the difference, and with this thought in mind, we provide eviction prevention services to hundreds of families each year, helping them catch up on bills, learn how to budget and save so that their future is bright. We know that there are many facets to homelessness, poverty, and hunger, and with your help, we will continue to provide programs and services that attack each one until that day when everyone in Fairfax County will have a place to call home.
Oh, so all the people, they give into FACETS. So just like they give in life, to the people they're really in need. So that's what I'll say. Thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you very much.
I'm sure that video just helped reinforce the many ways your gift to FACETS helps change the future. We're now going to turn to what I always find to be the most moving part of this breakfast. We're going to meet some of the FACETS clients, and we're going to be joined on stage right now by Richard. Richard gives a whole new meaning to the term resilience. He's been a participant in FACETS' permanent supportive housing program with the help of his case managers, Ruben and Candace. So please welcome to the stage Richard, Ruben, and Candace.
Good morning. Yeah. My name is Richard. My last name is Hill. I'm originally from Alexandria. I came to this area back in 1997. I came through because of some other issues of substance abuse. I've been homeless due to those. My sobriety date is August the 8th, 1997. During that particular time, I found out there was two major things that life that you needed, and one was housing, and the next one was employment. During that time in that program, I learned a lot about myself and was able to do a lot of things by attending a lot of meetings and really digging down deep and learning about me. I found out back in 1992 I had a disease called glaucoma. I did not ask for it, but it was something that I received. The doctors promised me that they keep me seeing as long as possible, and they did that. I continued to run my own business through Falls Church, Annandale, and Fairfax County. During that time, one year we had an early freeze, and I asked for some volunteer work, and I was directed to the Bailey's Crossroads shelter. While being there, I was able to engage with different clients there, experienced homelessness in a lot of different areas. During that time, I was looking for some more volunteer work, and then they asked me did I want a position. I worked with the homeless up until 2011. When the housing market slowed down, I took a position at the Bailey's Crossroads shelter as the building superintendent. I've had a lot of responsibilities and a lot of things. And so when the bottom fell out on me in 2011, when I had an accident in the vehicle as a result of my vision, I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to tell anybody on the job that I was losing my sight, that I couldn't drive, because I knew that would cost me my job and I would be in some type of financial stability. Just because I was young and I had to use my retirement, I was taxed twice by the federal government, but those some of the type of things that you learn in this particular situation. They say put money away for a rainy day, but you never know what day it's going to really pour down. During that simple times, I've been living on the street. I stayed with a friend of mine, but she couldn't take the fact that I was losing my sight and that she couldn't deal with it, so she told me I had to find some other arrangements. I had worked in that particular area, so I knew it was a bunch of abandoned houses and some houses being reconstructed in the Annandale area. So I knew this house that the electricity was on and the laundry room was adjacent to the house. And I stayed in that laundry room for a while until one night I decided to try the window. That night I tried that window, and that window went up and I went in. The next day I changed the locks on the door for security, not only me, but keep other people out as well. I stayed in that house for 6 months until they found out that I was in there. But that's what some of the resilience that you will have to go to in this particular situation. I never knew that I would be back in the homeless situation again, but I knew where to go by me working with the homeless. I go to this church called First Christian Church, and they have a program called Safe Haven. And they had outreach workers there, mental health workers there, and I decided that that these clients that I had worked with would say they was getting houses and that I needed a place to as well. So I engaged with them, and so they hooked me up with the FACETS. And FACETS, from there I went from a group home, and now I'm in independent living all by myself. The independence is the best thing to have. And I thank FACETS for continuing to work with me to maintain my independence on a day-by-day basis. And I have two of the best case managers standing beside me that continue to work with me day by day. Thank y'all for having me. And may God continue to put his blessings upon all of us. Thank you.
Richard, thanks so much for sharing that story. And thanks to you, Ruben and Candace, for supporting him in his journey. Our next speaker is going to be Yvette and her case manager, Tanner. Yvette, I'm happy to say, has left 12 years of homelessness behind her and is now, with FACETS' help, she has a place to call home. So please welcome Yvette and Tanner to the stage.
Good morning. My name's Yvette. I'd like to share my story. A wise man named Nietzsche quoted, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." To that I add, I assume the worst, hope for the best, and be prepared. Expectation can lead to disappointment. However, we can still work to achieve goals, and FACETS helps with this. Being homeless, it is important to strive to move forward in order to get off the streets and out of the woods. Apply and believe in yourself. Don't lose hope. Accept help. Don't hesitate to ask for it, and offer help when you can. We're in this together. Focus on the positive. Be honest. Don't sugarcoat, but be respectful. I grew up in southern Springfield with a loving family and a great neighborhood. My parents still live there with many lifelong friends. I worked full-time for law firms and lived rent-free with my parents, and thus was able to buy my own townhouse near them at 23. When 29, I sold it and moved to Roanoke to get out of Northern Virginia. My house in Roanoke was paid for on account of my townhouse increasing in value. However, a lot of bad things happened in Roanoke, so I came back to Springfield. Lack of money and grudge from my mother forced me to live in a tent and couch surf when possible. Then I met Tanner with FACETS at the Lamb Center, and he helped me with health care and obtaining housing. He would also visit my tent for a welfare check-in, bringing food and supplies. He is wonderful moral support. He even helped me apply for Medicaid, and some of his associates helped me with applying for general relief and disability. My housing came through, and I now have a beautiful apartment thanks to the blessings from Tanner and FACETS, who have also helped me with getting my life to move forward in several different ways. Thank you, Tanner and FACETS. Thank you.
Yvette, we're so happy for you, and thanks for sharing those words of wisdom. And Tanner, thanks for your great support. Our next speaker this morning is Prentice and his case manager, Robert. Now, Prentice did not let a major heart attack slow him down on his journey to becoming housed. Let's welcome now Prentice and Robert to the stage.
Good morning. I'm Prentice Meredith, and I'm originally from California. I came here in 1975 and I stayed to 96. Then I moved away to Ohio with my wife. I went to a very bad divorce and came back in 2015 when I had my first heart attack. And that's when I met the people from the Lamb Center. And they turned me on to the people from FACETS. I had 2 other heart attacks in between then. Then I had the massive one in 2017. It's when I met Robert. During this time, I was homeless, lived in the woods. But I am so thankful for FACETS and the Lamb Center for supporting and getting my housing today. And pretty much that's it. And thank you.
Thanks to both of you, and let's have one more round of applause for these courageous clients and their case managers. Now, I would like to welcome FACETS Board Chair Don Harris to the stage, and he's going to tell us a little bit about why he chooses to support FACETS.
I have the privilege of serving as the chairman of the board of FACETS. It's a new position that I took on about a year ago, but it is part of my history with FACETS because my earliest involvement came through my church, Burke United Methodist Church, particularly through the hypothermia program, and then through our Burke Gives Back program, where we did painting at the FACETS community centers, and also we have helped the food pantry with our Burke Gives Back fall food drive. It was when I retired from Innova Health System that I knew that I needed to be involved in some community activity, and because of my introduction to FACETS, it just seemed like a natural to agree to serve on the board. Sitting on the FACETS board of directors, though, has opened my eyes to the incredible work that our case managers and community advocates do each day for our neighbors in need. I also learned more about people we serve and how similar we are in this room to many of them. I found out about the moms and dads who want their kids to succeed just like we all do. That the gentleman living in the woods had been an executive before a mental health condition robbed him of his career, and how FACETS gave him not just a home, but his dignity back. That there is no one braver than a woman fleeing domestic violence with her children, who finds a place of safety and respect at our Next Steps emergency shelter. I know that I receive far more than I can give in my role on the board or as the board chair, as the people FACETS serves have taught me much about courage, resilience, and hope. Hope that will bloom today, thank you, Joe, as we renew our commitment to a Fairfax County where everyone has a place to call home. You can make a difference today as well by joining me and showing you care about our neighbors experiencing homelessness, poverty, and hunger. You will help them leave homelessness behind as you will help open the door to a brighter future, a future only possible because of the compassion and generosity of people like you. I want to thank our table host and my fellow board members for making this event possible. You each gave FACETS the opportunity to share their work with our community. Thank you for your support, and thank you to the hypothermia prevention and hosts and volunteers who are with us. 15 years of saving lives in our community. Let's give them another round of applause. I believe in FACETS' work to prevent and end homelessness and break the cycle of poverty because I've seen how effective it has been. Each year, the caring and compassionate FACETS staff provide thousands like Richard, Yvette, Prentice, whose stories you heard this morning, the helping hand they need to move forward in life, leaving homelessness way behind them. Today, there are over 1,000 people who are currently homeless, and for these folks, FACETS is always there, with programs and services that attack every facet of homelessness, poverty, and hunger. But to be there, we need your help. Your gift to FACETS connects people living in the woods, on the streets, or in their cars to a caring case manager. You may be the reason a single mom is able to stay in her home, as your gift supports our eviction prevention programs. Or your generosity may help a child in poverty head off to college, breaking that cycle of poverty for generations to come. This morning, I invite you to join me and others in making a commitment to support FACETS. This is your opportunity to make a difference in the lives of others right here in our community.
Thanks, Don. Well, this morning we've certainly heard powerful stories of how FACETS helps people in Fairfax County. We have celebrated 15 years of lives saved because of the compassion, kindness, and generosity on the part of our hypothermia prevention and response program and its faith partners, its volunteers, and a caring FACETS staff. I know I've certainly been touched yet again by these stories. I hope you all have too. So as we leave this morning, tuck these stories into the back of your mind and then talk them up with your friends, your business colleagues. Let them know that they can have a part to play in breaking the cycle of poverty in Fairfax County. Ask them to share the vision of a Fairfax County where everyone does have a place to call home. As Don mentioned, the seeds you plant today, those are going to bloom with a bright future for all. This concludes our program. Table hosts, I want to remind you to take home your terrariums, tend to them with care, and let that be a remembrance of this day when hope is blooming. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.
It seemed to me obvious that any development should have its functional facets, but it also should have a fun, beauty, fantasy.
There's sculpture that's sophisticated for adults. There's sculpture that's playthings for children. And there are sculptures for different tastes, and yet they all belong, and they all have a place. They're all fixed in situ in the environment.
Modern sculpture tended to be misunderstood. We felt that if we could take sculpture and make it useful and engaging, and especially make pieces of sculpture that had another role to play aside from being sculpture, we might succeed in making people love it more.
Reston is a very unique place. It has a really great tradition of public art and an approach to public art that was really ahead of its time in terms of integrating art and urban design and architecture and having the artists work really collaboratively on the design of public spaces.
It isn't that we had a piece of architecture built or someone did, and then we went out and bought art, to decorate it. Not that at all. We, the designers of the buildings and the builders of the place, together worked out the sculpture and the art, so that the sculpture and the art are very integral to the form of the buildings and the materials and to the concept of the whole thing. When it came time to think about the idea of let's have some sculpture, Gonzalo Fonseca was an obvious choice. He had worked for me before. He also knew Rosant. And so we were all kind of part of a family and friends,
My father did this portrait of me during the time he was doing Reston. And so while he was doing these monumental projects, he found time to do this portrait. Father was born in Montevideo, Uruguay. He did attend 2 years of architectural school. Then he met Joaquin Torres Garcia, who was that great modernist, painter, thinker. He began experimenting with all kinds of sculpture, influenced by architecture, history of architecture, antiquity of all kinds, plus his modernist, constructivist training. I think Reston may or may not be the first instance, but it certainly is the most important instance of his kind of breaking into his own idiom. His work certainly was the result of so much digestion of great art together through the prism of his own understanding of modernism and his own incredible imagination. My father used to say that his work involves serious play. They're spontaneous and they're things to discover, hidden things, just the sort of thing that children love. Father was almost oblivious to the art world and yet supported himself, and his goal was to make the minimal to keep going. Just before he died, he said, a lot of people want fame and fortune, I want time. It's the kind of man he was, the kind of artist he was.
Gonzalo Fonseca and my dad would go out to the beach, both in Italy and in Long Island, and they would do sand sculptures. And we had, little trowels and things. And these aren't like sand sculptures that kids make. These were pyramids. These were incredible creations, and they'd compete on the sand and do beautiful little steps that would circle a building. And when we, as kids, would go to Lake Anne after it opened, after it started, and see the sculptures, it was like walking into life-size sand sculptures. They were out of our imaginations of what my father and Gonzalo had built on the sand.
The fountain in the center of the plaza is designed as a play fountain in a way, so that kids of all ages really would not think of these things as sculpture primarily, but appeal to them more as something they played with and that made fun with water.
It's a fun sculpture, and it makes the plaza full of laughter. Public art was essential in creating a public space. The shape of the plaza brings people to walk around it. The fountain invites kids to play. It's magical how it coalesces the whole plaza.
Between Rosat and Fonseca, we really got public art where we wanted it. Community is what it's all about. Community is the interaction of people. That's my definition of community. I don't know if anybody else likes that definition, but I think it is. Community is interaction, and plazas are designed to foster interaction.
To create Reston Town Center, we knew we wanted something different. It's not very often you have the ability to put in the center of a city, in essence. We had to do something that was very special and that attracted people's attention right away. We knew within the first few months of our planning back in '81 that a fountain was essential.
In 1989, I was proposed for a competition to make a fountain. They have few artists who proposed, and I made my proposal, which was very extravagant and very expensive also. But they went for it, and it was one of the greatest adventures. I made this precise model for the fountain, and I brought it to Italy. It took several months for them to carve that piece.
The bowl was done in one piece, and then the spiral was done in two pieces. And then it was all put together on site.
When I'm asked to intervene in a space and create something new for the space, what I want to bring to that space is what I would like to find myself in a space. It is a surprise. I would like people to come around the corner and say, what is this? Wow. It was a community involved with in commerce, communication, so there's a god for that. That's Mercury. So I decided to make the Mercury fountain. But this Mercury I made is not stable at all. I hired this model. He was like this, and I had to put pieces of wood attached to his arms and to his body for him to be in the exact position I wanted, you know. The economic situation was not good. He was trying to find his balance. You know, Mercury was unsure. There's a great feeling about fountains. A fountain is a source of life. It's water. I like the idea of public art that's human, closer to what human beings really like.
I think that was the key thing, doing that fountain. It gives you a sense of place and makes you feel good.
Public art is a major aspect of placemaking. It blends distinction, identity, that sort of, I don't know why it's great, but it feels kind of different and cool to be here. So I think public art can offer all of that to a place.
Any evening, probably 10 months out of the year, where you sit at Mercury Fountain, the fountain's there, you see people gathered around it, talking, kids playing, and they may be engaged with the piece of public art and they're aware of it, but everybody in that space is feeling it. And that, to me, is one of the most wonderful things that comes with public art, the spirit of community that comes alive in a place like that. I began to think about public art in Reston, and the founding principles talk about art and beauty in our public environment. But to make sure that that continued, I began to pull the community together to do this.
Reston is very unique to have one singular advocate and visionary leading their public art program to continue on the tails of the successful work of Fonseca many years ago and to look differently at what would public art in Reston look like now in the 21st century. And I think they're off to a great start.
I was attracted to mosaics because of the solidity of the material. There's something about the sense, even though it's elusive, of the permanency of mosaic. If I had my druthers, I'd spend my life mosaicing empty walls on highways and freeways and underpasses.
So all of you are going to make little stars that I'm going to place throughout the big mosaic.
Valerie Thaberge and her husband, they engaged the school, they engaged kids. The kids actually participated in designing the art along with Valerie. What more can you say about Reston than engaging our kids?
That's a key component of what IPAR is doing with public art, is creating ways for people to have a meaningful connection to the art-making process and to learn.
Together, so
We wanted energetic colors and colors that kind of represented colors on a flower, so we chose green, yellow, and orange.
We're going to do like a green rectangle.
Okay.
Smaller ones, and fill the rest in with red.
Okay.
Well, the stars that the kids made were great, and it just shows you how unique and precious every child is, because each star was unique and precious. When the kids saw their work up on the wall, I mean, it was just the sense of ownership was very powerful, and the enthusiasm that they were part of this bigger project.
It feels really good. I feel like I've been a real part of something.
I have to agree with Noah. It feels like we really helped contribute to this.
When people approach the mosaic, I hope that they are energized and feel the sense of the power of life.
My hope for public art moving forward in Reston is that developers and members of the community continue to embrace beauty in public spaces and in our natural environments as we evolve over time to come.
I have often asked, what's the point of public art? What's the point? Well, what's the point of anything that's fun? To the extent that we can increase the pleasurable experience of living for other people, we've done something that's really very nice, very, very good.